Hey, Greg Crawford here. I'm the founder of Healthy Kids of America. And in this episode of the 5D Family Podcast, I have actually my first interview guest, which is going to be first of many. But I wanted to interview someone who's both successful in the parenting area and business world as well. So Holly Homer is the owner of the big Facebook page Quirky Mom. It's got thousands of followers. She also owns Kids Activities, which is kidsactivities.com, which is all different like printable activities, all different areas. I mean, there's hundreds of activities you could choose from and has done really, really well. So not only that, Holly is now getting more into the business coaching space. So she's got a lot to offer. She raised three boys. So we spoke a lot about different topics, parenting, business, having conversations, bringing up tough topics with people, and just everything navigating the world of parenting in this world and running a business at the same time. So without further ado, enjoy this interview. So I came across you, and now did you originally start Quirky Mom? Is that
So Rachel started what was called Quirky Momma, and that was actually the website. And when I bought it, 13 years ago, I changed it to Kids Activities blog, but we kept the Facebook page still Quirky Momma because back then it wasn't easy to change the page name, and we didn't know about branding, all of those things. And so all these years, so ended up growing the page massively, but and keeping it Quirky Momma, and it kind of works really well because it's funny because I talk about a lot of things and then, and to be kind of Kids Activities is like kind of closed up. So
Can you define quirky?
I just think kind of, I hate using the words out of the box, but I would just say being curious and open to other things,
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. And then, so from Quirky Mama, then basically you're sending moms to Kids Activities where
Kids Activities is probably the largest of the properties, and it's all like we publish 10 times a day, just fun things to do with your kids, resources for parents, kind of being that one stop of all things mom or dad. And it's just kind of fun. It's all uplifting traditional play, like let's get outside, let's do something that doesn't cost money, let's do something together, it doesn't matter what it looks like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because I'm on the website and there is no you could find anything that you find.
You could.
Everything from holidays to crafts, learning different subjects, parenting. You have everything on this website.
And it's all like super positive. Like you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. I don't consider myself an expert in any way, especially in the parenting, and my kids would agree with that. But my kids are all in college now. So it's funny, I have perspective of being through the trenches and kind of seeing it from the other side now and having a lot of perspective. So
yeah. And you're a mom of three boys, right?
Three boys. Yeah. So
I have a little boy. He's going to be 2 in May. I'm an old dad. So
I love it.
I started at 45.
Yeah, that's amazing. You have so much more appreciation and patience at this age. So,
yeah, definitely, probably a lot of wisdom. I have a good close friend of mine. He's got 3 daughters, and he's got 2 older daughters. One's in college, one's going to college, that he had when he was younger.
Yeah.
And then he has his 3rd daughter. There was a pretty long gap. She's young. She's like 9. So he always tells me like with his 9-year-old, he's like I'm doing this a lot different now that I'm older, and I'm like redoing all the things I wish I could redo on my first 2 girls with her.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't get started until my 30s. And so I was kind of an older mom in that, along the way. And now it's really funny because, now obviously with my oldest is 23. And so it's like, I'm still in that older category, but it doesn't matter. I'm so thankful I had them a little bit later because I do think I actually had the perspective to step back and not be in the middle of all the drama and kind of be like, like let's look at the big picture here. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
because it gets crazy when you have little kids.
Yeah. So tell me, like, who's Holly Homer? Like, what's your, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what?
Yeah, like I guess I'm just like I think that curiosity. I'm a physical therapist by training, and I worked in chronic pain for many years and ran a clinic. And then, but I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and so I had always told my husband, when we have kids, I'm quitting, And
Mhm.
so when that happened finally for us, I stayed home, and just like I don't know, I just like wanted to be like immersed in whatever was happening and open to new opportunities. And so I started what turned out to be one of the first mom blogs about 20 years ago. And that just, it was so funny because like that just opened doors. And I kept just like thinking, oh, that'd be fun. I'll just try it. And, which led me to now having like my husband, he's a physician and he retired 5 years ago to join our company.
Wow.
And so like it was like literally an adventure of, oh, that sounds like fun. Like, oh, that sounds like fun. Oh, let's try that. Who knows what will happen? That happens. And through the years, I end up kind of in the same respect, ended up partially homeschooling all three boys. They went to a school 2 days a week and we homeschooled 3 days a week. And so we had that really nice mix of them having structure, but then at home, not
Yeah,
very much structure. And then
that's
their
interesting.
boys. So like I was afraid they wouldn't sit. I mean, I don't sit still well, and I just saw that they couldn't sit still very well either. So I love that mix. Like they learned to sit still, but then at home, they were running around the backyard and that kind of thing. So
Tell me more about that part-time homeschooling, part-time
mhm.
school. How do you pull that off? I mean, can you actually pull that off with certain schools? I mean, I'm new
So
to all this and,
yeah, there
I'm
are
learning
a
about
lot of
homeschooling and, a lot of my audience are homeschool
mhm,
moms.
mhm,
My wife is teetering on that possibly being in the
mhm.
future. I'm still kind of old school and
Yeah.
I'm undecided, so I'd love to learn how that all works.
Yeah, so thankfully these days there's a lot of options that don't like fit that. Like I'm like not structured enough myself to do like the whole homeschool thing. And I knew that. So like I always laughed at homeschoolers. Like I was like, it's like I'll never do that. But we found sitting at the train table at the Barnes and Noble one day, I was talking to another mom when my oldest was 2 or 3, and she said, I just started working for this school where the kids are the most well behaved I've ever seen. And I was like, tell me where this school is. So she mentioned the school, which is kind of it's a classical education school, and it's a private school, and to decrease the how much the parents would have to
Tuition
pay
fee?
the
Okay.
tuition. They ran the same program on Monday, Wednesdays as they did on Tuesdays, Thursdays,
Wow.
out of the same
That is
thing.
smart.
It was so smart. And at that time, it was like out of they kind of rented a church, the end of a church. And it was very small. Actually, my youngest is graduating this year from that school, and they now have 3 campuses in Dallas, Fort Worth. Ours is the largest at 1,500 students. But it's funny, they run the same programs Tuesdays and Thursdays. So they actually, it's collectively, it feels like less on those days because you're really only running into another 700 students and then on Fridays they do electives, so you can choose to do that. But so they teach 2 lessons, and then we do basically the homework for those 2 lessons, and then obviously if the kids aren't catching on or something like that. But I have a real hands-off approach on as soon as they could read the instructions, they were in charge of their schoolwork at my house because I
Yep.
was starting to build this business, and it served them very well because they get to college and they know they've been in charge of their education for 8 years, 10 years. And so they get there and they're like, Mom, this is super easy. And can you believe there's people that don't study? And I'm like, what? What's the chances of that?
Now, is this hybrid homeschooling in school person? Is it like for grammar school, middle school, high school? What,
So we started in kindergarten, they went all the way through high school.
all the
So
way through?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we've had like a lot of our friends would pop in high school or, or do a certain amount during that time. But for the most part, it worked really well for my boys. They do like, you would have to have like a child that's kind of a self-starter, like, because the last thing you want to be doing is being like, because there's a lot on them. So it's not for the kid that you would be like, no, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. That is not going to work in this situation. They need to like take ownership of it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like school is almost, yeah, it builds structure and all of that, but it's like kind of like when you go into the workforce, like is working 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, is it really conducive to a good, healthy lifestyle and one that you actually want, like, and it's like it's almost like school is training them to like, you better get used to that life.
Yeah.
Whereas someone like yourself, someone like me, my wife, we're more entrepreneurial, more lifestyle driven. I don't think I want my kid to go down that route where he's feeling or she's feeling like overworked.
Or just so much homework. And like this schedule also allowed, like, we had so much time, like, like they didn't have homework when they got home from school. They did it the next day. So like we had time to, go to the zoo and go do things, see grandma, like, just do stuff that we wanted to do.
Yeah. And then I think the other concern for me and my wife is, like the influence in school, like, because you can influence your child at home, with family values and all that. But as soon as they're around other kids for an extended period of time, they begin to get influenced by kids. And if they're around kids that, maybe their parenting is totally not on board with your style of parenting, it could change your kid's behavior right under your nose. And that's a concern too.
Well, and I think that's one of the things when a parent chooses to do that much work, like it's a different kind of parent than your average, public school. And it's just because it's a self-selection. Like, hey, we decide we want to invest this time. So like one of the things I love about the school is my senior son's like friends are the best on the planet, and like they're just amazing. And like, they come over at our house, they go to everyone else's house. They went skiing together with one of the families. We're taking a bunch to St. Thomas in another month. Like it's a different group than they would get anywhere else. And it's because they're all independent humans that have made choices, which a lot of high schoolers are just pushed through without like becoming something inside of themselves.
That's absolutely true. So I guess my only argument, and this is like a debate with me and my wife, and I try to like always think of like the flip side, and I'm like, well, what about the part where I want my son to be able to adjust in different atmospheres and different kids and be able to handle different situations where I'm not keeping him isolated, and then all of a sudden he goes into the real world and he has to deal with different personalities and maybe different the way kids were raised. So that's always been my flip coin, and like thinking like I can prepare him for that situation.
Yeah, and I think because they do go to a school like that's not full homeschool, it is a pretty rigid school. They have uniforms and stuff like that, so they get that interaction. And then if your kid is on social media at all, I feel like the world exposure is to a point where like
that's enough.
I mean, like, I just like, let's wait till they're a little stronger to actually have them do that in person. And my kids have been on social media. I mean, they're boys, so it's a little different because it's not that big of a deal. It's more video games for them. But so I think there's enough, I don't know. I see enough of the world creeping into our lives that I see them having to stand up to it. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like, where do they get that backbone if they aren't exposed to it along the way?
Now you're a mom of 3 boys, so you obviously you didn't have a daughter. What is your like opinion on parenting sons versus a daughter? Do you think you parent them kind of the same? Do you think you got to treat sons different than you would treat a daughter? What's your just opinion on that?
Yeah, this is probably super unpopular in this day and age, but like there are extreme differences in boys and girls. And I only know that within what I see in my family. I'm not speaking for anyone else's family, but like I'm a girl, so a
Hmm.
lot of the things I was dealing with through the boys, like I was like, what is going on? Like, what is going on in their brains? Like what? Like, for instance, I live in Texas, but I was not brought up in Texas. And I was brought up in a non like gun home. And so like we didn't even have squirt guns when I was growing up because that was a gun. And so like I didn't like it wasn't like that big of a deal, but like early on in those kids' age, like I was like, like I didn't have any weapons in the house because like it hadn't even occurred to me. And then I realized they were making weapons out of like wood and sticks and like sharp things like serious things that they could hurt each other with. And like if you took them into like a wood shop and you were like doing something with them, because my dad had a wood shop, they would be making sharp pointy things to
A
stab each
sword.
other with.
Yeah.
And so like it was so funny because it dawned on me, what would be safer? If we went and got Nerf guns, if we went and got squirt guns. So like, but like my girl brain had never even been there, but the boy brain is like all about like, girls, you put them together, they're not piling on each other like puppies. Like, it's a different interaction. So it was just so many things in my own family, not because I led it there, but because it happened organically, that I just see that you would have to maintain different things. And I'm sure there's, kids that cross over as far as like, hey, they have more interest in this way.
Hmm.
But like for me, like when the kids were little, the boys were little, like I was in survival mode, just wearing them out every day to keep them out of trouble. That was like, and that's what kids activities is really how it came up, is like, what can I do with them? Like the days are super long. What can we do so that it is constructive? It's purposeful. I don't kill them because they drive me crazy. They don't kill each other. They get fed. And so like that.
Yep.
So really, whereas, my friends that had little girls, they're having tea parties and they're doing like, they can go shopping because their kid isn't going to throw a tantrum in the middle of Target like mine's going to, so like it was just a different world. And it was a very physical world that I saw in my home, even though my boys aren't even like big sports or anything like that. It just was a more physical world that I was used to as a girl.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
just
do think there's a
innately
lot of,
different.
yeah.
It just, yeah. Yeah. Because I'm going to be a girl dad in May.
Oh,
So I'm
that's so
like,
exciting. Congratulations.
yeah. So like, I'm like, all right, learning my way with my son right now and
Mhm.
like, balancing, discipline versus fun and
Yeah.
love. And now I'm like, now I'm going to have a little girl and have to like, I'm like, I know I'm going to have to do this completely different, I think, but
I think you just let them lead, but like I will say, I think the early stages of a boy are a lot harder, and I think the later stages of the girl are a lot harder. Like I
yeah.
feel like my life is so much easier now that I have like teenagers and in early 20s is like, and then I see my friends who have, girls that age, and sometimes that's a really like it's hard to be a teenage girl in America. I think at this day and
Especially
age.
right now,
Yeah, it
I
really
would say.
is.
I don't know
So
why, but
yeah. So, I
yeah, I
mean, you
mean,
just
my
hug them and you love them and you just, you hope for the best and support them how you can.
yeah, I mean, I have great examples in my life with friends and even my brother. My brother is, raised my niece by
Mhm.
himself as a single dad. Her mother was not, she left when she was like 2 months old. So my brother did an amazing job with her. She grew
Yeah.
up super smart, great head on her shoulder. Like her emotional intelligence was like is amazing.
Yeah.
And now she's a freshman in high school. She's a teenager, 15. And she's changing, obviously. She's not like the little cute girl anymore. So my
Yeah.
brother, he sometimes he has a tough time with it because it's like
Hmm.
he's like, and I tell him like you got to hit the reset button now. Like you have a whole different person now to raise again because you're dealing with a teenage girl versus
Right.
a little girl. Like you did great, the little girl. Now you have to change your tactics up a little bit with the teenage girl.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's been fun to watch. What's what would you say is like your biggest concern for kids today? I know
I
that's a
think,
big question.
yeah, I think they're missing out in childhood. Like, I think there's a reason why kids, sh- I truly believe just from what I see has worked and what hasn't worked. I think they need to play. I think they need to be bored. I think they need to run around outside without any sort of aim or game. I think they need to breathe fresh air and be in the sunshine and splash in the lake and get dirty and get muddy and like just be kids without any sort of structure or agenda or learning. Like
Yeah.
I love how we have all these learning activities and I'm like, yeah, play. That's called the ultimate learning activity. And I just think that I see this really in kind of, these generations now that are now having kids. They almost don't feel like they have permission to let those children just be children. If their 2-year-old's not, learning language, they're like, they feel like they're failures. And I want to just hug them and say, no, like, let's just go outside. Let's go make mud pies. Let them be kids and they are going to develop skills that they would never develop if you didn't just let them be bored and figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And
I like what you said too about learn how to be bored.
yeah,
I
yeah,
that's important. Like just teaching a kid to be comfortable in their own skin
yeah.
with just their own self and entertaining themselves and because I remember when I was a kid, like I mean I would just daydream about like being a football star or I would
Mhm.
just throw a ball against a wall a hundred
Yeah,
times like
yeah,
whatever it is. I found things to kind of entertain myself and I think yeah that could be lost with all of the high tech and the
hmm,
you know all the crazy games now and the internet and so I totally agree with you on that.
yeah. I think
And then when it
I
comes
just
to
am
school
worried.
too,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, the learning disabilities and the ADD, ADHD, and I think some parents look at it too much as a crutch,
hmm,
whereas, there's plenty of successful people that have dealt with ADHD their entire life and they've learned how to use it, as a strength for them versus a
yeah.
crutch.
Well,
And,
and
you
I
know,
think there's a philosophy now that if there's something wrong with your kid, and I want to put that in air quotes because I don't think there's anything wrong with your kid. But if you think there's something wrong with your kid that a pill's going to fix, you're really, really, really cheating them out of the experience of trying to overcome an obstacle that is going to make them the most amazing human on this earth.
mhm,
And I look back, I raised, when they were, we're talking 15 years ago, before a lot of this, where you were putting kids on medications and stuff. And I know some of it's necessary, but like, I just remember sitting at the park one day, there's probably about 5 of us moms, and then all our kids were all over the playground. And we were just laughing because we were looking out there and are like every single one of us has issues. Like every single one of those kids has crazy issues. Like we dealt with sensory processing disorder in my house to like a crazy degree. Like we had one kid, one of our friends like was autistic. One of them had a severe peanut allergy. I mean, like, but every single one of those kids, there was no kid that you would say, oh, they're normal. And we were just laughing at how like when you throw them all together at the park, they figure it out and they love each other and and they support each other and they learn how to deal with all these like, well, we know that we can't, they learn how to deal with each other's quirks and what we at that time but like, so like, I think sometimes when someone like gets a diagnosis or something, they think they're alone and that child is like, now special or, or not normal. And I just want to say, no, like everybody's dealing with something. That just happens to be what you're dealing with. And so like step back and see like what is a way that you can do this in a way that like they can learn through it. Because you look at everybody who's like super successful in this world, it's not because they were handed something on a silver platter. It's because they came obstacles, then learned through them to get to that point that made them that unique human being.
Yeah. And one of my biggest things that I always talk about, and I guess it's a philosophy of mine, is I don't like slapping labels on kids right away, like even on adults, but especially on kids. Like, I feel like when you put a label on a kid, you're kind of like, here, you own this now. Like, this is you, where it's going to make it harder for them to overcome that. If it's like, if they're wearing it as a label, like, this is who I am, versus, okay, we have this problem. Maybe there's another way to solve this problem, or maybe you're not good at learning it this way, but you're really bright at problem solving this way. So I'm very careful about, putting a label on somebody. And
yeah, and I completely agree with you. And I think one of the problems is when you put a simple label on a complex problem, it does not solve the problem. If your child is dealing with ADHD, or if your child has sensory processing disorder, or in a lot of cases, both, just putting one label on that does not even come close to sharing the complexity of what they're dealing with. And then there's just a simple solution to this very complex issue. And I just don't think that's the way it is. I think like there's complexity in lives that we can't just simplify with like, oh, they're that. No, they're that and so much more. And oh, by the way, if you slap it with that, you're going to change the course of all these other, it's a snowball effect within their psyche, within their ability to cope, within their ability to interact with the world in certain ways. So I think you have to be really careful with that.
Great insight. Ali, let's switch gears a little bit because I want to be respectful of your time and just talk. Now it looks like you're transitioning more into business.
So along the way, I have built this, business, this online business over the years. And so I've been teaching along the way. In fact, you can go back to my YouTube channel where I decided that I was terrible on camera, and in fact, I'll tell you the story how that started, but like I went here in Dallas, like back in the early days of blogging, and like the local TV station, when they needed someone like on a holiday or on the weekends when they didn't have anyone, they would call up some of the bloggers and bring them in. And I really enjoyed doing that, but I was really like very intimidated by it, very scared. And on the second or third time I did that, like I froze in a live TV segment.
Really?
About 10 seconds. And of course, the segment was like probably 45 seconds long. So it was like horrifying, and I could just cry it all the way home. And I was just like, I have to get better at this because it's something I think I will enjoy doing. And so my solution, and at that time, it was back when in the days of Google Plus. So you could go live because I didn't want to have to edit anything because I'm not technical. So what I did is I just started going live on Google, which now is YouTube. And I was like, what am I going to say? And so I was like, well, I'll just talk about how I built the Facebook page. I'll talk about how I built the blog, because it's just like, that's what I do all day. And so I just started doing those, and people started watching it. And it was really funny that just even in the early days of blogging, as far as conferences and all that kind of stuff, I started teaching because I would learn how to do it and I would teach it. And I love teaching. And so that has
were you doing all the posts and the blogging, and were you creating everything, or did you have like a small team?
Yeah. So in the early days, and by the way, I've like never spent a penny on my business that I didn't earn first. It's all sweat equity to the point. So in the early days, like nobody was making money blogging. So I wrote every day, and my first blog was called June Cleaver Nirvana. And that's where I shared stories about my boys and stuff like that. And then when I bought Rachel's blog, it was because I realized those stories, once the kids get to a certain
June
age,
Cleaver,
they're
by the
not
way, was
mine.
Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, it is a June Cleaver. Yeah. And those stories are no longer mine to tell. Like when they get to school age, I can't be telling stories about them. Like their teachers are reading it, their friends are reading. Like it's not okay. Like those aren't my stories. And so I had to switch, and that's when I bought Rachel's blog, because she was doing more like what to do with the kids, not, hey, this is our personal story. So it was a really nice transition for me. So I'm rolled into that. And then I was always teaching, and because I'm not a tech, like literally a no tech person, that's where Pagewell came in, is because I literally said, we were trying to put all these like low ticket printables, like, like a guide for this for $9, or a checklist for this for $2, or here's an opt-in that we want to give away. And we were using expensive software, making funnels, making all this stuff. And it was taking us about 10 hours to put something together. Then we would clone it. And then I started doing the math, because I'm really into analytics and numbers. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, do you know how many $2 products I have to, make just to pay for the software that I'm using to put this together? Mm-hmm. I have to hire someone like this. I can usually clone it and change it, but like it's stuff I'm not good at. This is like, why is this so hard to either give away something or sell something low ticket on the internet? And so Rachel said, oh, well, I'll solve this problem for you. And then why don't we just solve it for everyone else? And I was like, okay. 2.5 years later, and a few dollars later, Pagewell is that. But what you can do, go in, make a checklist, make an ebook, make a digital product. You can choose, and you can do it with AI. You can, based on what you make, it's going to create a sales page that you can go in and say, yeah, or edit it a little bit. It's going to make a delivery page with AI. You can go in and change it if you want to. It'll make you the delivery email, and it's going to host all those things. It's going to take the money and send it straight to you. And then it's also going to give you, like with the AI, it was like, it knows what you made. So like it'll make you a whole social media calendar, blog posts, and all these things that will go with it. So this whole process that used to take, several weeks and a lot of money to do, you can now do that. Like I can now put something together in less than 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes is a pretty decent product, but it just gives you the power to not have to be really technical to sell or give something away on the internet. And so like a lot of these times I'm like this shouldn't be this hard. And so like these are these, or like my knowledge, I teach a lot of SEO. And the reason why I did that is because I got to a point where I couldn't afford the help that they wanted to give me. And I was like, I've got to figure this out myself. Went ahead and did it. And so then I teach it. And so it's all these things along. I always feel like if you can master something and then figure out a better way or simplify it, I think the world overthinks most everything.
Yeah.
Well,
you're consistent. You're consistent. That's the recipe of success, is being consistent,
Just one foot in front of the other, baby steps.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably like the one thing I want to teach my son is being consistent with everything you do, because that's going to lead to success more than anything.
Yeah.
So,
I
always like a tool that I can use.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody really, because like you think about, I want to grow my list, or I want to make sure that whoever sees me on social media has a way to contact me again, because those algorithms are very fleeting. You might see a video today and then never see that person again and, totally forget about. But if you can get them on your email list, if you can reach out and bring them into your world on a regular basis and find that community that supports each other, it can be so powerful. That's one of the beautiful things about the internet, is that you can really find your people.
Yeah. I mean, I've had great conversations with all these different moms that have come in and bought my program, Superhero Nutrition, and like how it changed their family's dynamics with food. And so, yeah, you definitely meet a lot of cool people from around the country. And
Incredible.
so I have, I launched this company, Healthy Kids of America, and then I have a main business that, helps support my family.
Yeah.
So there's been times where I've had to like kind of put this to the side for a little while and take a break to focus on my main business. And now, going back and really driving this thing again, because I think it's important
I love it.
to give, families and kids some more like empowering things to work on, so cool. So what are you up to? Where can people find you or learn about you? And
So you can find me at kidsactivities.com, Kids Activities blog. That's really kind of the hub of where everything happens.
Mhm.
We have over 1,500 free printables on the site, like coloring pages, worksheets, things for moms and dads too. But if you download any of those, you'll get on my email list, and we send something out every day that kind of covers like, what you don't want to miss, which is super fun. I love that because like, I think we get so busy sometimes that like we miss out, or we feel like we have to go scrolling through Facebook and then we like, oh, 2 hours just passed by and I got nothing accomplished. So we'll send it to your inbox. And then pagewheel.com is where you can find this tool. If you have an online business or an offline business or a side gig or anything that you're building a community or building a list or trying to sell something low ticket, or you're selling like video course, like if you're teaching something, a lot of people we have the ability to add video into like the delivery pages. So like if you have people are using it for simple education modules and stuff that they might sell, from everything from crafts to business advice. So it's really flexible as far as like, if you're just looking for a tool that is inexpensive, that can do a lot of different things. And by the way, it has a really good AI generator behind the scenes. So if you're like, hey, I've been wanting to deal with AI, but I just haven't wanted to learn anything, we have a solution on PageWheel for that as well.
Well, I'm definitely going to be going to that page and checking it out.
I love it.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on with me, Holly, and us just chatting and kicking it. And
yeah, this is fun.
yeah, I'm going to be posting this on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
And then also as a newsletter. I use Beehive for my newsletter now.
Yeah.
So I like it so far.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so just let me know, because I'll send it out through my newsletter as well, just because I know, like, I think, people are always looking for like people who are thinking the same things that they are, like, oh, I was thinking about that the other day. I wonder what someone's opinion on that. So I love this.
Yeah. And just like off topic, like what's your take on like being like a little polaristic, I guess you could call it? Like, so, I tend to like when I'm writing and like talking to parents and stuff, obviously I have my strong opinions on things, but I don't express all of them just because I don't want to like alienate certain people. But then like, I know if you're going to be interesting and you're going to find your people, that sometimes you have to like tell it like it is and how you really feel. So I'm trying to like develop like that fine line now, like, okay, do I want to go there or do I not? Like I don't care about the blowback for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not my concern. I just want to make sure like I'm just doing it the right way. So I'm just curious of your take on that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And in fact, I had to leave Facebook personally
okay.
for a few years because what I would have said there would have not gone over well. And I do think there's powers that be that within the algorithms. And I don't think, I think in effect, they're trying to, to make sure that it's hard on the internet to put things in context. And I think a lot of the things that I would say, a lot of people would agree with if we had a conversation, especially like we did today, like where we put it in context, we have time to hear my heart, hear your heart, hear that it's not just a black and white, this is how I think, don't talk to me, like, no, I want to have a conversation about it. And I think
because people
really
only read headlines. Usually.
Yeah, only read headlines. And so Holly Homer said this terrible thing oh, by the way, it was not really that in context of an hour conversation, you would have probably agreed with me too. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's where like those of us who are talking a lot on the internet have to be a little bit careful that when we are saying things that might like be like, may not be the norm, is that they're within heavy context on either side and not taken at a place. And so I think there's obviously people who have leveraged the headline. That's not my brand. I really believe that everyone has something to say. And I think when a lot of times those polarization comments are taken in a way that, oh, Holly's right and no one else is, and that's not where my heart is. And so if I've ever quoted in that way, that's not where my heart is. And so I think that's one of the hard things. Now, with my brand being kids activities, which is inclusive and like everybody can play and everybody can have a great childhood, and no matter what socioeconomic, what country, you know, with people all over the world, like whatever that is, like I think childhood is important in every culture and every, you know, everything. So like that brand, that's one of the reasons why I removed myself, because I have to be careful, because I don't want something that like which doesn't have anything to do with my business is taken out of context and puts my business and my ability to share these things at jeopardy. I guess that's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, like obviously everyone who's a parent, their biggest concern is, you know, their child's future and what
absolutely
what's going to happen. And, you know, but you have two different people that might think their child's future is in jeopardy for two different reasons.
Yeah.
And this program with Healthy Kids of America is all about empowering kids. And there are certain topics that I feel like, you know, that probably need to be discussed. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me, which I don't care.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also think about, you know, I don't like alienating people. That's my, you know,
I agree
but
with that.
I'm also not afraid to tell people my opinion.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Well, and I think the conversations are important. And I think, you know, we talked about this earlier when it was respect to our children, having, you know, children, you know, be able to have conversations, you know, with, you know, that are different than, you know, and be exposed to different things and be able to stand up for what they believe, but also be open to other things and understanding. And I think as adults, we've kind of forgotten that to a certain extent. And like, how boring would this world be if everybody just agreed with each other and was like marching down the like, and I was like, but in some areas of the internet, that has become the norm of no, everybody has to agree or they can't say something out loud. And I just think that's so sad and lonely.
If you don't agree, you're evil or you're
and I love a rousing conversation, and I love to talk to people.
But at the same time, what do you teaching the kids? You teaching them like, oh, you
have
can't
to
have
follow.
You can't have your own opinion, or you can't think differently, or
that's scary. Like, always listen to authority. That's scary.
And then you're showing kids, if they think this way, you have to attack them and call them names. It's exactly what kids do to each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you got to change that whole energy and, you know, I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think we all need to sit down and have more. I think the answer is more conversations, more open. Like, why do you?
Well, that's why I think podcasts. Yeah. I think that's why podcasts are taking over. Mass media.
I do too.
People are getting their news from podcasts and from social media channels versus putting on the 7:00 news.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I would just say my favorite podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis are not people that agree with me 100% of the time. In fact, often I agree with them 50 to 60% of the time. And that's what makes it interesting for me to listen to them. So those people who are holding back their opinions because they think it might be unpopular are doing a disservice. Because people who are going to be really into how do you think that way, like if you're just spouting some sort of conventional wisdom, how fun is that?
Yeah, I always try to listen to the other side of the story, and then like in my own head kind of like I try to like put myself in their shoes and say, okay, let me help me make this make sense.
Yeah,
And if I can't
exactly.
find any reason whatsoever, it does not make sense. I'm like, okay, I don't know what they're thinking.
I love it. Oh, well, thank
All
you
right.
so much. This has been so
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah, this
Hopefully
was
do it
great.
again sometime.